Hello all and welcome, and I am the MGTOW philosopher. Now in this video I would like to discuss the subject of leftism and why it isn't active as a force for good and helping the oppressed masses in Africa. Now, we all know that America and Europe are full of leftists. They are everywhere. The communists are everywhere. The question is, since they are so big on helping the poor and the supposed oppressed, why are they in the richest, most successful countries in the world? I mean, wouldn't you think they would be in the poorest, crappiest countries where people need the most help? You would think so. But instead, they only target mostly white countries. Now, Africa, being primarily black, 98%, 99%, are black people somehow bad? Why? Why are the leftists only in America? Another question is, why are the leftists not trying to integrate and use cultural diversity in the poor, crappy countries in the world? Again, the leftists believe that the best way to improve cultures and societies and make them better is to import foreigners and refugees into a country that is primarily populated by a single, solitary ethnic group, and therefore diversify it and make it better. Well, why aren't they doing that with Africa? I mean, if you would look at things from a social justice warrior, leftist, Marxist, pinko, communist point of view, these countries are a perfect example with what's wrong with the world. And not only that, but they need a lot of help. You have everything in these countries that the leftist loves and supposedly wants to help. If you look at Africa, most people in Africa are poor. The infrastructure is terrible. By their definition, the people have been oppressed. I mean, this is a place that needs to be helped, that needs to be diversified and improved and have the outside elements come in and make it stronger. But why aren't they concerned with that? Why aren't they concerned with Africa at all? Why don't they, in their bountiful wisdom, want to improve a country that is so dirt poor that most people still don't have running water or indoor electricity? Why? Why are they only concerned about countries where the majority of people live far better? I mean, the poorest person in America, for example, oftentimes lives as well as the richest person in one of these third world countries. Maybe even better. And if you were to go back in time, even the poorest American lives as well or better than a European king might have back in the medieval times. So you have to ask yourself, why are they so concerned with countries that are very successful and don't really seem to need help when you have all these poor, pathetic, oppressed people that need their help most? Why aren't the leftists trying to make Africa a multicultural leftist bastion that they could save? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Africa has no power or influence in the world at all. You see, the left, it isn't really about helping the oppressed. If you want to find oppressed people, or formerly oppressed people, and they love to talk about how colonialism has oppressed so many people, that's nowhere is that more true than Africa. Then you would think, if that's what they were about, that's where they would be. But that's not where they are. They're where all the white people are. Why is that? Why aren't they in the places where there are people who have really been oppressed or who are supposedly oppressed now? I mean, almost every country in Africa was conquered and colonized by Western powers at one time or another. Their natural cultural and political evolutions were disrupted, which created chaos in the country when the European powers pulled out. In some cases, the people were made into slaves by these European powers. And in all cases, the indigenous people were actually oppressed. Yet the left, it's not arguing for an invasion of foreigners into Africa to make it better with cultural diversity. It's not arguing that white people and Spanish people and other ethnic groups should go to Africa and settle down and create a wonderful multicultural mix that would supposedly greatly improve the country. Why is that? Why are they not arguing for that? They're arguing it for America and Europe, but not the places that are the most supposedly oppressed by their opinion, the poorest and the least diverse. Why aren't they arguing for those kind of things that happen in those poor, oppressed places? You see, the reason is because the left sees success and wealth, as evil and oppressive. And since wealth is evil and oppressive, it must be destroyed. After the leftists have stolen it and pocketed some of it and given it away to poor people, or supposed poor people, that is. You see, leftists don't see the good in Western civilization. They only see the evil. They only see the inequality and the soulless pursuit of profit that robs people of finding some kind of esoteric spiritual meaning and fulfillment from their work. However, that's bullshit, okay? Let me tell you that right now. That's just a leftist Marxist party line. This stuff about finding fulfillment in work and workers' revolution. That's BS dogma, just to justify their actions, that they're lifting up supposed oppressed people. It's bullshit. The truth is that their actions are far more conceited and base, and of a very low and envious nature. You see, it's far worse than you could imagine. For you see, the leftists, they're for the most part failures in life. Now, some are successful, but most of these successful people are either useful idiots who can be easily indoctrinated because of success guilt, which is what I call it, or genuinely intellectually dishonest. And they parrot this leftism for the purposes of popularity, career advancement, or political advancement, or just to feel virtuous. And the majority, the foot soldiers, and even many of these successful people, well, the leftists got them before they even found success. They found them in the public schools, in the universities, okay, where they were indoctrinated into this ideology very early on. For you see, the public schools in most Western countries are not really set up anymore to educate, but just to create mindless zombies who believe whatever you tell them. And you tell them that white people are evil, and that capitalism is evil, and that the accumulation of wealth is stealing from poor people. It's not the creation of wealth, that life is a zero-sum game, and wealth is a zero-sum game. Well, you teach them that, and you make it into this dogmatic ideology that they're going to grow up. No matter how much success they get, the majority of them are going to continue to believe this. You see, therefore, it's okay to be racist toward those who don't agree with you. It's okay to destroy them whenever the chance arises. And when I say them, I mean white people. Okay? So the left teaches that white people are evil. And it's okay to oppress them, because the white people have oppressed everybody else. So now we have to oppress them and destroy them and take all of the wealth that they supposedly stole from the rest of the world in their colonial expansions and give it back to the people who need it most. Not the people in Africa, of course, but the richest country in the world, where even the poorest person is better off than many of the rich people in other countries that are third world. Yeah, we'll give it to them instead. So, you see, the narrative is about supposedly helping the oppressed, but they are not where the oppressed really are. They are not where what they would define as the oppressed really are. And what they really are is against whites, and as whites have created the only really successful countries in the world. If you follow leftism, i.e. Marxism, that means that all the white countries are only wealthy because they oppressed poor countries and stole their wealth. So every rich country out there, America, the UK, many European countries, nah, the people in those countries didn't happen to maybe be smarter or more industrious. They didn't make better decisions. No, they just stole all that shit from the brown people. That's all it was. So it's okay for us to steal it back and give it back, but we won't give it back to the brown people. We'll keep it and we'll redistribute it to other people in the richest country on earth because we're smart enough to make more use of it, better use of it than they are. Yeah. Now that, and of course that is why leftists love to steal other people's wealth. They can justify it. The whites stole it from other people, and we're the real virtuous people trying to help the oppressed, so it's okay for us to steal it and redistribute it to the poor. Yeah, we're like Robin Hood. But of course they don't send it to where they say it was stolen from. No, of course not. The poor brown man in Africa. And anyway, yes, so on that note, back to Africa, yes. Now the truth is the left isn't in countries like Africa, simply because there's no wealth for them to steal there. If Africa was the richest nation on earth, the Marxist, leftist, pinko, communist scumbags, they would be in Africa. They would be stealing Africa's wealth. They would be preaching their social justice warrior ethics there and trying to redistribute the wealth until they destroyed the country. But there's nothing there for them to steal. You see, leftism, it doesn't work in poor countries. Leftism meaning socialism. You know, the poorer the country, the less attractive it is to leftists. That's why countries like Venezuela, where socialism was tried not too long ago, destroyed the country so quickly. It was a country that wasn't very wealthy, but they were doing okay. Their economy was improving. And then all of a sudden they got a leftist socialist president, and he enacted all of these leftist social programs. And before you know it, 10, 15 years later, the country's in shambles. So the richer the country, the more attractive it is to the socialist. And the poorer the country, well, the less attractive, obviously. And you see, there's no wealth to steal in Africa. And then benevolently redistribute to the masses so that these people can feel virtuous. There's nothing to take. There's nothing. You see, you can't go in there and take the money that the evil rich people have and hand it to the poor, thereby improving those poor people's lot in life. Because everybody's poor. There's no money to take. There's no wealth to redistribute. So that's why they're not in Africa. Because in Africa, the only rich or semi-rich are despotic warlords vying for power. And they have guns, lots of guns, and armies. Big, tough armies who know the terrain. And they will shoot you if you try to democratically steal their shit and give it away. But oh, that's right. They have no democracy. And those African countries that do are poor and unstable. Except for South Africa, of course, which was founded and run by those evil white people. And when those evil white people started to leave, once they turned it back over to the native blacks, the country started to go downhill real quick. And now it's just a shadow of its former self. I wonder why that is. So, there's no wealth to steal and redistribute. So the leftists go where the money is. Namely America and Europe. They go there because in their view, this wealth makes those people that run those countries, makes those countries, in essence, oppressors. Because by the Marxist philosophy, if you're rich, you're an oppressor. You can't be rich unless you stole the money from people. Of course, because life is a zero-sum game, and if you take some, somebody else loses some. It couldn't be that that person actually created wealth. Oh my God, no. And this way, they can strike at the heart of the evil beast that is the white man and his white supremacy. However, there's a problem with this worldview. And the problem is this. If the left cared about the poor and oppressed, America's the wrong place to be. You see, Americans have the highest standard of living on earth, as I previously said. How do you help people who don't need help? You know, I mean, America, every house, you got running water, you have electricity, indoor plumbing. I mean, these are luxuries to most everyone in the third world. And yet leftists and socialists in America are talking about oppressed poor when you've got all these black people and brown people, as the left would call them, walking around with Obama phones. But these people are the ones that need help. Yes, they don't. But for the left, it was never about helping anybody, okay? It was never about helping these people, all right? You see, the oppressor-oppressed dynamic is nothing more than this. It's angry, disillusioned people who envy the success of others. The success of others. And they want to be virtuous and superior. And they want to use social justice and Marxist doublespeak to elevate themselves and bring you down. You see, if you're white or have the wrong opinion, you have to be destroyed. You see, they get to feel superior. They get to feel smug and arrogant and morally righteous and indignant. And this is very addictive, these feelings. This is power for leftists, and they love it. And a lot of these useful idiots have been marginalized in their own lives. And now they get into this movement, they accept these ideas, and they start to advocate for them. They feel virtuous. They feel righteous. And these feelings, they can be addictive like a drug. And they get off on shaming other people. But that's okay. For them, it's right to do that, since you are, of course, evil because you're a white guy. And being white, you automatically are an oppressor because you're privileged and you're in the richest country in the world. It's the richest country in the world because white people in the past oppressed others, and they're still somehow living off of the wealth that they got from oppressing others all those years ago. No, they didn't create any wealth. No, of course not. Their ancestors didn't spend 16, 18-hour days in factories 7 days a week when they immigrated to America from Ireland or one of these other countries where people were starving because the only food was potatoes, and then there was a potato famine and millions of people were dying. No, it couldn't be that. And so if you're white, they feel... And this is also another reason, because a lot of these social justice warriors, you might say, you might ask yourself, well, geez, a lot of them are white. How can they be adopting this kind of paradigm, advocating these kind of beliefs? Well, I'll tell you, because they feel the requisite amount of white guilt. They feel the white guilt. They internalize it. And, of course, this is good because this makes them feel even more virtuous. Oh, look at him. He's one of the white oppressors, but now he's decided to become one of the good guys. And he sees the truth. Oh, now he's even more virtuous. So that's more virtue brownie points for you. And, of course, they also get to have real power. These social justice warriors, these leftist, communist, Marxist, Leninist, useful idiots, they get to have real power as a collective. They get to belong to something greater than themselves, finally. And they get to have power. And they get validation from belonging to this collective. Something they didn't have as individuals. But they only get that if there is someone to demonize. If there's an evil bad guy. And of course, if there's an evil bad guy that they can steal from so that they can feel virtuous and gain more power by giving away that evil, rich, bad guy shit to people who didn't earn it. So that's a prerequisite also. You've got to have somebody who's the bad, evil guy who you can steal from. And that's a large part of why you don't find many leftists in Africa. There's nothing to steal. What, are you going to steal? Dirt? Conflict diamonds? For in truth, these leftists, they're nothing more than parasites. But a parasite, it needs a healthy host. You see, there aren't many goodies to steal and give away. If you're talking about an unhealthy host. Hence, Africa holds no interest to leftists. They're not interested in that. There's no power to be gained there, you see. There's no rich people to steal shit from and give away to the masses so that you can feel virtuous and gain power. And that's really what leftism is all about. It's nothing more than a system that disillusions people. It warps their view of reality so as to make them accept contradictions and illogic in the service of a supposed higher ideal called communism. That's all these people are. They are communists. Communists advocating for a global collective government. However, this conversion to this ideology of the entire population, it's very expensive. It's a very expensive conversion. So you need a healthy host with a very developed infrastructure so that you can educate the masses into accepting and championing what is essentially dogma that becomes impervious to logic and reason once that conversion is complete. And so the real poor people, the people who might actually somehow qualify as oppressed in some way, and are really oppressed if you look at things by SJW standards, social justice warriors, meaning leftist, Marxist scumbags. These people, well, they don't get any help. No. The help goes to those who don't really need it. People that live in a first world country where even the poorest person is better off than the richest person in many third world countries. The help goes to people who have absolutely no need of it. And why is this happening? Why is this done? Well, it happens so that the leftists can buy their dependents and usher in the global collective utopia, the communist dream that the leftists have had for so long. And then, of course, they, the useful idiots, well, they believe they will get into positions of power. And then they can do more good. Sadly, it never works out that way. You see, socialism, Marxism, it always destroys wealth. It always destroys the country's wealth by de-incentivizing labor, production, and entrepreneurs. So what you end up with is no more money to help anyone, except themselves, of course. For you see, in the end, socialism is nothing more than a self-serving ideology which envies and hates others for their success. You see, it breeds these feelings in people. And so there's nothing to destroy, nothing to tear down in Africa, and nothing to hate or envy. So it's of no use to them. And the same is true for just about every third world country out there. There's not enough wealth to attract these parasites who are out to do good and help people, but they're all conglomerated in the places where all the money is. Interesting. And the social justice warriors, for them, well, they don't really care about the poor. They really don't care. The poor, it's not important. They're not interested in helping the oppressed. Their call, their rallying cry for helping the oppressed, well, it's just a smokescreen for helping themselves to other people's resources, at the point of a gun, of course, and creating enough dependent voters to make government do the gun pointing and money collecting for them. So that's it, folks. The left's total lack of concern for the third world proves what liars they are, and that they are nothing more than a scam. They care about enriching themselves and gaining power for themselves and nothing more. And the ground troops, the fools who go out and do all the work and advocate and work to create this new paradigm of a world utopia, will, in the end, once that utopia is achieved, be destroyed. Because they are useful idiots. And once they are useful no more, they're no longer needed. And they have to be disposed of because they are too ideological, too energetic in their pursuit of their goals. And once they see the reality of their ideology, the reality of the outcome, of the things that they believe would bring utopia, but actually brought destruction, they will be disillusioned. And they will want to fight back. And they are the biggest threat to you. The real guy, the real powerful person, the person who's really pulling the strings, so they got to go. And to you leftist idiots out there, it doesn't matter what you do, you will never be the boss. If you accomplish your goals, somebody else is always going to be in power, and it's going to be the same people that are in power now. I am the MGTOW philosopher, and I wish you all a good day. Take care.